All right, let's get into this. We are not talking about some boring, dusty old composer today. No way. We're talking about a guy who dropped a piece of music so wild, so different, that it literally started a riot.
I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. Can you imagine a new song coming out and when it's played, the audience just gets up and starts shouting, arguing, even throwing stuff at each other? It sounds made up, right? Well, it actually happened, and we're going to break down exactly how.
So picture this. You're sitting in a super fancy theater in Paris. The lights dim, the orchestra starts up, but what you hear isn't what you're expecting at all. It's loud, it's aggressive, and it's just strange. People around you start whispering, then talking, then shouting, and pretty soon the whole theater is just total chaos. That was the very first performance of a ballet called The Rite of Spring.
Okay, so let's get into the story of the music that actually literally started a fight.
You know, what's so wild about this is that the reaction wasn't just bad. The music just instantly split the room right down the middle. It was like one of those viral things online that people either absolutely love or completely hate. There's just no in between. You had one half of the audience going crazy for this bold new sound, and the other half was absolutely furious, like it was a personal attack on everything music was supposed to be. So, who's the mastermind behind all this chaos? Let's hit rewind for a second and meet the guy who lit the fuse, Igor Stravinsky.
Stravinsky's backstory is pretty cool. He grew up around music, but his parents really wanted him to get a real job as a lawyer. But he was obsessed with music, so he basically studied it on the side, almost in secret. Then he gets his huge break when he's discovered by this guy, Sergei Diaghilev, who ran a world-famous ballet company. This was like getting signed by the biggest record label on the planet. It was a huge deal.
Now, before Stravinsky dropped his most controversial piece, he actually had a couple of major hits. You can think of these like his first two albums that went platinum and put him on everybody's radar. So his first big project was The Firebird. It was all based on these cool Russian fairy tales. The music was beautiful and magical, and people loved it. I mean, they absolutely loved it. This was his mainstream breakthrough. It pretty much made him a star overnight. Then, a year later, came his second ballet, Petrushka. This one was a little different. The music was definitely bolder, some of the notes and chords were a little stranger. It was still a hit, for sure, but you could totally tell he was starting to experiment. It was like a band trying out a new sound on their second album. It was a little taste of what was coming next. So after two huge successes, you'd think Stravinsky would just stick with the winning formula, right? Keep making music people loved? Nope. He decided it was time to get weird. Like, really weird. Yeah, he wasn't interested in just making another pretty-sounding ballet. For his third big work, he basically decided to take the entire music rulebook and just tear it to shreds. He wanted to create something nobody had ever heard before. And that project was The Rite of Spring. So forget everything you know about fairy tales with magical birds. This ballet was about ancient, raw, pagan rituals. Even the story itself was a huge shock for audiences who were used to seeing, elegant princesses and handsome princes on stage. Okay, so we've met our main character, we've set the stage, now let's connect all the dots and break down exactly why this one piece of music caused a literal explosion in the theater. So what was the recipe for this riot? Well, first, you have the story, which was unsettling and kind of brutal. Second, the rhythm. It wasn't smooth and easy to tap your foot to. It was this pounding, unpredictable beat that felt aggressive, kind of like the soundtrack to an epic video game boss battle. Third, the sounds themselves. The notes were designed to clash in a way that just sounded harsh and wrong to people back then. And finally, the dancing wasn't graceful at all. It was heavy, with stomping and weird jerky movements. It was a total sensory overload. This chart really says it all. The old rules for ballet music were simple. Make it sound pretty, make it predictable, and make it perfect for graceful dancing. Stravinsky just came in and flipped the whole table over. He was all about jagged rhythms, shocking sounds, and raw emotion. He wasn't trying to make music that was pretty. He was trying to make music that was powerful. He totally changed the goal of the game. So, you might think a premiere that ends in a full-blown riot is a complete failure. But for Stravinsky, this scandal was actually the beginning of a totally game-changing legacy. That one night of chaos changed everything. Stravinsky proved that music didn't just have to be beautiful to be amazing. He basically created a whole new musical language, using intense rhythms and clashing sounds. He showed everyone that art could be powerful, it could be shocking, it could make you feel something intense. And yeah, even though it started a riot, The Rite of Spring is now seen as one of the most important pieces of music of the entire 20th century. So if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Stravinsky didn't just write a new song. He completely blew up the definition of what music and dance could even be. He took the rulebook, threw it out, and showed everyone there was a whole new universe of possibilities out there.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Stravinsky was a rule breaker over 100 years ago. Who do you think is doing that today? What musician or filmmaker or artist is making stuff that divides people, that challenges what we expect, and that pushes art into a new place? It's something to think about.